Hi, today we're going to take a look at the Nikon D500. We've used this camera for our interviews in Photokina 2016 and for the past few weeks as well. This is not going to be a full review, but we are going to give you our impressions, both the good and some of the bad of this camera. We have already published on Lensvid a few other full reviews, so you better look at them if you're considering buying this camera. So let's dive in. What we want to do in this video is talk about our experience with the D500 over the past few weeks, including our time shooting with it in Photokina, some video and some stills as well. Try to point out some of the many good things that we liked about this camera and mention some of the things that we think that Nikon still needs to improve. The D500 has lots of customizable buttons, much more than most previous Nikon cameras, surely much more than any APS-C camera by Nikon in the past. We found the location of the ISO button on the top of the camera to be great, and we use it extensively, much more than what Nikon has done in the past with the D7000 series. The tilt screen on the camera is great and much better than the one on the A6300 by Sony, partially because of the location of the hinges, which allows for a full 90-degree down look, which is important in some situations. The touchscreen is also great, especially for video, and scrolling between images is also simpler. Pinch and zoom works, and unlike the D5500, double tap goes to 100% zoom. The new joystick is a nice addition, but for my small hands the location is just too far, so I kept using the older keys to change the focus point. Talking about focus, if there is one thing that Nikon really deserves credit for in this camera, it is the autofocus system for shooting stills images. It is truly amazing and ahead of anything else that we have tried so far, although to be honest we didn't test the Canon 1DX Mark II and the new A99 Mark II by Sony for long enough to really compare, but these are much more expensive cameras anyway. The autofocus system has tons of options, including many that you won't find on the D7000 series. We specifically like the group autofocus function, which we use quite a bit with very nice results. The viewfinder on the D500 is great with 1x magnification. It is not as large as a full frame, but it is bigger than what you get on a D7000 series, which is closer to 0.9x magnification and has a round eyepiece, which is really nice. The blinds for the viewfinder is also a cool addition for preventing light leaking from the viewfinder during long exposures. Sadly, you can only find this simple solution on advanced Nikon cameras. Personally, the D500 is a bit too big for my rather small hands. It is smaller than the D810 but larger than the D7100 or 200, which fits my hands much better. The D500 is a very fast shooting speed with a large buffer. This works great and is just fantastic for sports and wildlife and some other journalistic style shooting scenarios. You can see a few fast sequences of shooting that we have done with the D500 and the new Sigma 50-100mm f1.8 lens that we shall review here soon right now on the screen. It is really ideal for this type of shooting, and if you think that the 3 or 4 extra frames per second compared to the D7000 series isn't much for sports shooting, think again. We only tested the D500 with an SD card, but we can certainly tell you that you will need a fast card if you're going to get the D500 because it tends to slow down otherwise. We suggest you get a fast XUD card, especially if you shoot a lot of sports or wildlife. To be honest, we would much rather have either 2 SD cards or 2 XUD cards. Having 2 different types of cards is just annoying. On the D500, Nikon added an interesting feature. The buttons on the left and on the top left dial light up when you turn the light on the top screen. Really cool and useful. Sadly, it doesn't apply to all the buttons, but it's still very nice to have. The image quality of the D500 is great. Although the resolution is lower than what you get with the D7000 series by about 4 megapixels, the quality of the image itself is very good, and especially the noise at high ISO, which is very good for an APS-C camera. We will be comfortable with using images up to 3200 ISO and at a pinch maybe at 6400 ISO. Nikon's new wireless technology and app called SnapBridge is a really nice concept. However, setting it up still requires a bit too many steps. Nikon needs 1 or 2 click process at most to connect the camera to the app, maybe even a dedicated button that will let you go into the SnapBridge part of the camera, which in our view needs to be simpler. Nikon also needs to find a quick way to mark specific images from the camera which you will want to transfer into your phone instead of transferring all of your images, which is a very bad idea in our opinion. The SnapBridge app itself is also not perfect and it tends to get stuck sometimes, and the control of your camera from the app is extremely minimal. Another aspect of using the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on the camera is the drain on the battery. Half a day of light shooting will almost drain your battery completely from our experience. We highly suggest that you turn on the airplane mode if you're not using the wireless connectivity to preserve battery. Mind you that with the airplane mode on, the battery can easily last for over a full day of heavy stills shooting. Video quality is also great both in 4K, which this camera is capable of, and in 1080p. However, with no on-sensor image stabilization, and more importantly with very poor autofocus in video, this can't be really used as a pro video camera unless you're working exclusively with manual focus or shooting completely stationary subjects. The D500 crop in 4K video is huge, around 2.2x in total. You will need a very wide angle lens to get even a normal focal length. For example, 24 to 70mm lens will turn into around 50 to 100mm lens. And if you want a very wide angle, not to mention ultra wide angle view, you might be in trouble. Also worth mentioning is that the touch autofocus in live view is slow, much slower than focusing with a viewfinder. Finally, something that was really well documented already, third-party batteries won't work on the D500, also older Nikon batteries will drain faster. As we noted, this isn't a regular review of a camera, but more of a subjective experience in very specific situations. In general, the D500 is a fantastic stills camera and more particularly one of the best sports and wildlife cameras on the market, certainly with an APS-C sensor. The D500 could have been a fantastic all-around camera for video as well as stills with its high image quality, but sadly the lack of built-in image stabilization on the sensor and the unusable autofocus video makes it a very limited video tool. So this was our look at the D500. You can also read it on lensvid.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Next time we're going to take a look at the Sigma 50 to 100mm f1.8 lens. See you next time.